Are you struggling with an entitled child? It's really not uncommon for me to meet parents who have entitled kids, and they're at their wits' end trying to meet their child's needs or trying to understand why their child acts the way they do and what they can do about it. In this video, I'm going to share a couple of key points from my experience, both as a clinical psychologist as well as a parent. I think this will help you deal with this behavior, connect with your child, and help them make more positive choices. So let's dive right on in. There's 4 different types of parenting styles we know from research. So I want you to imagine a graph. The x-axis goes up and down, and this represents what I call parental demands. This is basically how demanding are you as a parent for appropriate behaviors from your kids. At the top, we will call this being high demanding. You have a lot of expectations. Think of that like being pretty strict. At the bottom, we have low demands. So these are parents that don't have many expectations of their kids for appropriate behavior. Now, from left to right, we have this x-axis, and this is what we call parental warmth. Okay, on the left is low parental warmth. On the right is high parental warmth. And this is the quality of your relationship, the quality of your bond with your kid. It really means how attentive are you to your kid's needs. So high demands and high parental warmth is ideal. We call that the authoritative parenting style. But we often have low demanding parents who don't require appropriate behaviors. These are lenient parents, but they're high in warmth. And this is what we call the permissive parenting style. And this is where we get a lot of our entitled, self-centered kids. So in order to deal with your child's entitled behaviors, you have to ask yourself the hard question: is your parenting style the permissive parenting style? You know, entitlement comes from not requiring kids to suffer from natural consequences. It comes when we fix and rescue them from their discomfort. I want to tell you a true story about a boy we'll call Jack. But before we go into this story about Jack, I want to thank you for watching this video. Are you struggling to communicate with your child or to discipline them effectively? You know, none of us were given a manual when our kids were born with all the rules and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, so we just end up learning by trial and error. Well, this channel is all about using my system of correcting and connecting to build a strong, trusting, influential relationship with your child. If that's the kind of thing you want to know more about, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share with any friends you think would benefit. Now let's get back to this example. I'll never forget this boy, even though it's been over 2 decades since I last saw him. We're going to call his name Jack. It's not his real name. Jack was 17 years old when his parents forced him to come see me in therapy. He was really close to turning 18. I actually liked Jack a lot. He was bright, he was charming, he was super cocky. He really never had to do anything difficult in his life. He was a pretty entitled kid. Well, Jack had recently been caught shoplifting at Costco, and that was the final straw for his parents. So they made him come see me. Well, Jack didn't want to see me. He really didn't think he had any problems. Well, while seeing me and getting to know Jack, I discovered that Jack loved drugs, and his latest favorite was meth. But he found it to be too expensive. So Jack started stealing tools from construction sites, and then he would go and sell them at pawn shops, and this provided him with more than enough money for that day's drugs. And then he would actually come into these therapy sessions with me, and he would brag to me about how good he was at stealing. Well, the day before his 18th birthday, I said to Jack, the consequences for you if you get caught are soon going to be exponentially greater than they are right now. And he just laughed at me. Like Jack laughed, he said, I'll never get caught. Well, a little backstory, Jack's parents, who were very loving and kind, but they always covered for his consequences. So like when he was caught for shoplifting at Costco, they actually hired a really good attorney and he got off easy. Every consequence was covered by his parents. Well, soon after I began seeing Jack, I visited with his parents several times, and I told them that by rescuing him and not allowing him to face real consequences, they were actually creating the very problems they were wanting to avoid. He was getting worse, and I very directly told them that they needed to change or he never would. We talked about what their role was, and their role was a lack of boundaries, a lack of consequences they were fixing and rescuing for him. They would just never follow through. They just couldn't stand the thought of him suffering. No matter how much we talked about this, and they did recognize that it was a problem, they just wouldn't change. Well, I soon realized that I was working harder at changing them than they were, so I stopped. Well, in my very next session, in my waiting room, Jack had turned 18, and guess what happens? He shows up in the waiting room in an orange jumpsuit. He was at the county jail. He had just turned 18. He had actually gotten caught for stealing at the construction sites. And this was our last session together. He spent the next year in the county jail, and I never saw him again. I've always wondered what happened to him. I wondered if he ended up spending a lot of time in prison. But my point in sharing this story with you is that when we rescue, and I know this is a dramatic story, but when we rescue our kids from consequences or difficulties, they never get to learn. When we do this when they're young, they never get to learn from little small consequences. And then when they get older, those consequences become much bigger and much more painful, like they were with Jack. I really believe that entitlement with kids is usually a problem with us as parents. So we have to ask ourselves, can we change in the way we parent to help our kids stop with their entitled behaviors? I've developed a whole course on connection and credibility that will address this and many other concerns in great details. Are you looking for a more effective way to connect with your child and build long-term positive influence? Maybe your child's misbehaving or going through a difficult phase, or you're just struggling to know how to discipline them, or even sometimes just how to reach them at all. Well, I have over 25 years of experience, both as a dad, as a parent, and also as a clinical psychologist. And I've worked with children, young adults, and families. Well, I've put together a 4-part video series that is totally free for you to watch, and available for online viewing whenever you're ready. Just go to the link in the video description below, or go to correctandconnect.com. Enter your details, click the button, and I'll send you immediate access.